Okay, now we're recording. Okay, I hear it. I should have waited. Now, anyway, as I was saying, this project originated because some of the original indexing, in fact, a lot of the original indexing in Texas of death records had incomplete data. And so when people were starting to research and try to use family search, especially for finding these people, if you knew their name, maybe their birth date, you might have luck. If you were looking at other pieces of information to help you track them down, they weren't so readily available. So this project has identified about a dozen or more additional fields, and I'll show you a couple of screens in a second that'll kind of highlight that. And we're going through and basically filling in the blanks, trying to make these people more reachable and hopefully help you find family members or help others find family members in Texas. So I'll show you just, like I said, I only have a few slides. There's really not a lot to show. If you've ever done indexing at all, you'll know that it's somewhat not complicated, but somewhat involved, especially trying to read handwriting and stuff. And this project, because it's really an addition to an existing record, seems to be a lot easier. So if somebody wants to do some indexing, it's probably a good one to learn, because like I said, I'll show you some of the screens. You can see how easy it is. So what we were trying to do, as I said, is include additional information, like who the informant was, the date that they were buried, what cemetery they were buried in, the funeral home, funeral director if we have it, and for all the reasons that I mentioned before, this helps to make them more searchable. So when you first get signed up, and there's a process that we go through, it's pretty simple, and I'll explain that at the end for those who might be interested. But then you'll have a login page you go to right here once you're signed up, and it's pretty straightforward, simple. You put your username and password that you've set up, and it takes you in to this project. And even though it's not a super high-tech looking project, it's very functional. And what it will show you on the main page are the packages, or we call them work packages, from films. Typically a package has up to like 21 names in it. So like you could take a packet and probably in a half an hour index it, because it's relatively small. So you, as it shows on the screen here, you assign that project to you so that nobody else gets it, and then you can open it and see the images that are in it. When you open it, it's going to look somewhat like this. You'll see that here is an image, a death certificate. And if you've done other indexing, you can zoom in and out and move the image around to read the fields. Sometimes they're easy to read, sometimes they need to zoom in a little bit. But on the right here, you'll see on this form and entry form, the fields that it's allowing you to populate. And you'll see, I mean, this one is just showing an example, but there's only about 6 or 8 fields that we're really filling out information on. The bottom, that green area on the bottom, is kind of a summary of each record that's in this packet. So this packet only has a couple of records showing here, but this is just a screenshot. But across each line, it shows you all the information, either things that were there before or the things that have been added by the indexer. And this is one of the things I wanted to show you, and probably this is the most exciting part of this, because all of this is just, I mean, I think pretty straightforward, but why do we even bother to go through it? Well, here's an example of a gentleman who was from Victoria. He died in Houston, and his records were just recently indexed. This is one that we've just done over the last few weeks, and somebody has gone through, edited it, and the dark green line at the bottom is the record that represents this image on the top. And somebody went through, edited it. When we're indexing, there's a two-step process. We have a second person review it so that we just make sure there's no typos, or sometimes a word might still be a little difficult to figure out. And so having a second set of eyes helps make sure we don't make any mistakes in what we publish. But this is a real one that, just like I said, in the last few weeks was posted to Family Search. And once it's posted to Family Search, and we do that continually, it's almost immediately available for people to search on. And in fact, the next screen here, this is actually going into Family Search and just searching on this gentleman's name, and you'll see that the informant at the bottom is there, the funeral home, all that information that wasn't in the original indexing is now available. So the exciting thing about this project is, as people are doing it, almost immediately, within days, or at least within a couple of weeks after the work has been done, we let Salt Lake know that these packages have been completed, and then they ingest them into Family Search so that they become immediately available. And the scary thing, or not scary, I guess, but the challenge is that we've got about 4 to 5 million records to index. I mean, there's a lot of people in Texas, and over the years, a lot of people have been buried. And we have those records now. And so what we're really doing is promoting getting anybody who's interested involved in indexing as well. And the process is really simple to get started. There's a URL here that if you click on that URL, it takes you to a wiki page inside of Family Search that explains in detail this project. There's a little video you can watch that explains how to do it, what to look for. There's certain rules that we try to follow, like when you put initials in, we don't put periods. And so we want to have a consistent way that we're indexing things, so it makes it easier for people to find. And simple, probably a 20-minute training video and some documentation to read. And then it takes you to a link that allows you to actually register, and give a username and password you want to use. It sends you an acknowledgement that you are registered and you can start using it. And then you can log in immediately and pick a package and start doing work. So we're excited about this project because, like I said, there's millions and millions of names in Texas that we want to provide additional information to help people find their families. And so anyway, any questions of anybody? Everybody ready to join today?
Yeah, this is Alan McKean. I had a question. So all of these records, I mean, I thought they may have been like damaged or something like that, but they look pretty easy to read. So why aren't they in already? I guess is my question. Why are so many not already, part of the Family Search or digitized like all the others? I'm just curious.
I don't know the whole history of that. I think some of these records have just recently I think my understanding is a lot of this information was gathered from other sources. And so some of this may be new sources that they didn't have at the time. So that's why we're trying to get them indexed, because they provide additional information. But I don't have all the background on that. Yes, sir.
I'm Larry Telford. I'm from Family Search.
Okay.
Actually lived in Texas and was in charge of some of the filming of some of those. So I can answer some of that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so those were originally microfilmed, not digitized. They eventually digitized, went into indexing projects, but not all of the fields were selected. So everything that you're doing was something that was indexed, but just not completely indexed. And so that's part of what this is. How can we get the rest of these fields that are really valuable that weren't indexed in the first place?
Okay.
So.
Well, that's good information. Yeah, I remember the old days with microfiche, and that was a challenge. And trying to find something was a challenge. So, well, good. Well, and as he said, there's so much new additional information, and people are using things in ways. I mean, just the whole way search algorithms work and how you can find things on the internet now is so much different than it was even 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. So thanks for that feedback. Any additional questions or information?
Don, this is Bruce Carson.
Uh-huh.
I'm working on this project with you, but I've come across several certificates that, like one example is the death county and the death town were inversed. I could correct the county. How do we go about, is there any way that we can correct the other fields? Someone had an incorrect name indexed. I see them, but is there any way we can possibly correct things like that?
We've seen a few of those as well from the original indexing that was done. And I don't have a good answer, but we've asked Salt Lake what to do about that. We've corrected things that we can correct. Like a common one we've seen is somebody died in January of 1931. And they said he died in 1930 because, you know, New Year, everybody kind of forgets. And we could see other things on the death certificate that indicated that it was the previous year. And so we've made those corrections. But as far as changing things that were previously indexed, currently we don't have that capability. But we've asked about that, so we're looking at, what can be done. Anyway.
Also, just for information, if a person's going through and they come across the signature of a funeral director that is hard to read, but it has a funeral director's number.
Yeah.
There is a website in Texas that you can go to, put in that number, and I would say about 70 or 80% of the time, the person's name comes up, so it makes it easier to interpret what you're actually reading.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Carrie Ann did mention that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's definitely very helpful.
Also, if the name doesn't come up with a number, you can look it up in the county, and I have I'd say about 50% of the people that I couldn't find with the number actually came up when I looked up all the funeral directors by county.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for that, Bruce. Kristen, I see a hand up here.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good.
Good. I just had a question as far as, say we go in and we get a packet, we choose a packet, and can we just do it as time permits? If I choose a packet, do I have to get it done within a certain amount of days?
We encourage, there's only 21 images on each package. We do understand that, people kind of do this in little chunks as time permits, and that's great.
Mhm.
But we tried to kind of have some guidelines that if within a week or two it hasn't been done, we may unassign it so somebody else can finish it up, because people do
Okay.
also get tied up with things and maybe don't get back to it as quick. But we try, and in fact, if you reach out and say, don't unassign it, I'm happy to not do that. But, there's no real time limit on it, and we've got so many other packets to do that there's no reason, to take it back from somebody unless you just know, hey, something's changed, I can't get to it, and then
Okay.
we'll finish it. And that's a good point too, is if you're not sure you're going to get back to the packet, you can unassign yourself, and the next person that comes in and gets that packet will already see the things that you've done, so they won't redo the work. They'll just finish it up for you. So even if you can only do a partial packet, that'll end up helping. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Hopefully you can answer this. It doesn't deal with working on this project, but I have an ancestor who died in Dallas in 1907, is buried in Collin County, and I cannot find a death certificate. Is it that not all death certificates were issued, or that hopefully with your project you will come across his death certificate?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to the first part of that question, but we do have our packets by counties, so we can look at, unfortunately, this is a huge project, and Salt Lake only loads so many packets at a time because we'd probably be overwhelmed with all of them. We don't know how many there are. They just keep coming as we finish a group of them. We notify Salt Lake, they load them and feed them into Family Search so that they're searchable. And then they'll send us, we'll automatically get new ones coming in. But you can definitely look by county to track down, somebody that you do that indexing, and maybe you'll come across that name. But yeah, over time, hopefully, as far as whether there's always death certificates issued, I would assume for the most part they are, but I don't know. Back in the early 1900s, what, the issues that may have come up, or whether things got lost. A lot of things could happen. That's why I know in my family history research, I find this is one source. There's so many other ways, because sometimes you'll find that certain things aren't recorded or aren't available. And so, this is just going to be one more tool that people can use that wasn't available in the past. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the advice.
Sure. Any other questions? Anybody came in late and have some questions that maybe something I already covered? I'm happy to kind of re-review things. We basically just discussed the origin of this project, which hopefully you got the gist of that, and the steps to join. Actually, if I go back to this slide, if anybody takes a screenshot of that, or you're welcome to email me and I can give you any additional information, but that will take you right to the wiki site where it details this project. There's a video. If you click on the image, it's a little YouTube video that explains how to do it, and then takes you to how you register. And the one thing I will mention, if you do register, is this is a tool we're using, was actually developed in Europe. And so looks a little different than maybe some of the, especially if you've done indexing on Family Search here in America. It's pretty easy, but it's also very elementary. So if you forget your password, really the only remedy we have right now is just create a new log in. It's not going to hurt anything. And in fact, we've told a few people, and we're welcome to do this, since it's not really sensitive information as far as your personal information. If you just email us your password, we'll archive it, just so if you lose it or something happens, we're happy to, save you the trouble of having to create a new account. Well, I know Marlon, you've been doing a lot. Have any input you wanted to share with anybody?
Yeah, this has really been a great tool. One thing that I have noticed is that the records themselves are already on Family Search. I have actually searched for them, and I find them, and I can pull up that certificate in Family Search. What does help is the additional fields that we're indexing makes them more easily searchable. And so once I just did this as an experiment, but I looked at the record before I indexed it, and then after I indexed it, that information was directly available.
Yeah.
So it's really designed to help give more search parameters so people can find the record easier.
Yeah, and for those who might have come in late, I'll just go back to this slide. This is an actual record that we indexed in recently in the last month or so. And you see the highlighted line, his name is Charlie Franklin. And if you go over to Family Search, of course, I don't have the image or the search before, but the search after, you can definitely see that his race, the informant's name, the funeral home, all that information is now on Family Search. And this has just been in the last few weeks that it's been indexed. So that's the beauty of this tool, is the turnaround is really pretty fast. Once we get enough packets complete and we contact Salt Lake, it normally takes them a day or two to get them fully ingested into Family Search, and then they're searchable. So thanks.
I've noticed also one thing in Family Search is the ability to edit some of the indexed information. And so I've had that question, okay, when I see areas that have been obviously misindexed, I have been able to go to Family Search and actually correct the information. One time I went back to check it and found that somebody else had already corrected it.
Good.
But on those areas where we don't have in this particular tool access to edit, some of that can be corrected in Family Search. I might also add that most of the ones that I've been recently doing have been in the 1940, 1941 time frame. They seem to be indexed, or I mean grouped together within the same time frame. And with so many thousands of records still needing to be indexed, it is possible that we'll come across some of those others. But it's a wonderful project, and it's relatively easy. I've taken some people who have been brand new to indexing and used this as a tool to help them learn indexing, because it is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Great, that's great feedback. If you look at, like on this screen here, there's only, well, this one's probably, this one I got images over it, but probably you can see that whole screen. But if you look down the right-hand side, it shows you all the fields. And not all of these were added now. These are just everything that's associated with this death certificate. There's only about 8 or so of the fields that are being added that weren't previously indexed. But you can quickly, and so if you're working off of a sheet, and this is kind of what it looks like when you're working on it, you look at the image and you go over to the right and just fill in that blank, like race is one, and the city that they were buried in is one. There's, like I said, but it's just filling in what you see on the screen right here. And when you're done, you just submit it, and then it gets reviewed by a second person. And then once it's been reviewed and verified, then it's flagged as ready to upload to Family Search.
Don, can you go to the other image that shows the actual, the one that you had just,
Yeah.
the next one, I guess it is, that one. Okay. It says entry form. You'll notice that the death county, sometimes that's been different. We can edit that. We can edit the race, the informant's name prefix, like a Mrs. or Mr. or whatever. And then the other fields that we have access to. Those are the ones that we can edit. The ones on the right is what's already been indexed. And then as we add information, then the information that we add is also listed here on the right.
So anyway, I just don't know if there's any other questions out there. It's great having Marlon here because he does this all the time. So he has even better knowledge than me as far as the day-to-day operations, things you come across.